When people ask me how anything big begins, I always smile, because the answer is very simple. Before you build anything with your hands, you must build it in your mind. When I was young, my life looked very ordinary. I failed exams, I was rejected from jobs, and nothing in my reality suggested success. But in my mind, I could imagine a different future, and that imagination became my quiet strength. Most people stay exactly where they are because they cannot imagine anything else. They wake up, repeat the same day, and call it fate. I learned early that talent and resources are not the starting point. Imagination is. If you cannot picture a better version of your life, you will never fight for it. The world does not limit you first. You limit yourself by what you believe is possible. When I started dreaming about building something meaningful, people laughed. They said I was unrealistic, too optimistic, too naive. But realism is often just fear wearing a smart mask. Failure is a stepping stone, but only if you can imagine what lies beyond it. Without imagination, failure feels like the end. With imagination, failure becomes information. This is a secret many people don't want to hear. The gap between those who build and those who don't is not intelligence. It is vision. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but imagination decides what those goals even are. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, but doers are first dreamers who refuse to shrink their thinking. If you cannot see it clearly in your mind, you will never have the courage to chase it. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but imagination prepares the soul. Everything you admire today existed once as a fragile idea in someone's head. If you can imagine it, you can build it, but it must start here in the mind. When I look back at my early days, I always laugh a little. Not because it was easy, but because it was so small. I had no money, no technology, and no powerful friends. My English was poor, my confidence was fragile, and my future looked very uncertain. But inside my mind, I carried a picture of something much bigger than my situation. People often confuse small beginnings with small destinies. That is a dangerous mistake. When I started, people judged me by what they could see. They saw a teacher with no background in business. They saw someone who had failed too many times. What they could not see was the vision in my head. Imagination allows you to survive humble beginnings without losing direction. When your present is weak, your vision must be strong. I learned that great builders think far ahead but start very small. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They do not wait to look impressive. They take the first step, even if it feels embarrassing. Failure is a stepping stone, but only if you keep walking. Many talented people quit early because their pride cannot handle starting small. But hard-earned wisdom teaches you that growth loves humility. This is where imagination becomes power. When your vision is clear, small actions feel meaningful. Sending one email, making one call, learning one skill, it all connects to something larger. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but vision decides where that bridge leads. Without vision, discipline feels like suffering. With vision, discipline feels like purpose. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, but doers are patient with small starts. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and preparation often looks boring at the beginning. If your dream is big, your start will almost always be small. Do not be ashamed of that. If you can imagine something greater than today, then starting small is not weakness, it is strategy. The moment you imagine something bigger than your current life, doubt will arrive. It always does. I learned this very early, not from books, but from people around me. When I shared my ideas, some smiled politely, some laughed openly, and others warned me to be realistic. What they called realism was often their own fear reflected back at me. Society trains people to kill ideas before they grow. Friends may say they want to protect you. Family may say they want you to be safe. Teachers may say you should choose a stable path. But stability is a beautiful word that often hides insecurity. Failure is a stepping stone. Yet most people are taught to fear failure more than regret. Doubt becomes powerful when you borrow it from others. I was rejected many times before I ever built anything meaningful. Those rejections did not hurt because of the no. They hurt because doubt whispered, maybe they are right. This is the real battle. Not money, not technology, not competition. The battle is whether you allow doubt to shrink your imagination. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, but doubt turns potential doers into lifelong talkers. Builders learn something very important. They learn to protect their imagination in silence. You do not need everyone to believe in your idea. You only need to believe long enough to take the next step. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but doubt tries to burn that bridge before you cross it. This is why emotional control matters. You must respond, not react to negativity. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but preparation requires faith during uncertainty. If you allow doubt to lead, you will never move. If you lead despite doubt, confidence will follow. Every great thing you see today was once doubted by people who could not imagine it. If you can imagine it, you must defend that imagination fiercely. Doubt is the first enemy, but only if you surrender to it. Imagination is powerful, but let me be very honest with you. Imagination alone will not change your life. I have met many people with beautiful dreams, intelligent ideas, and big words. But nothing happened. Why? Because ideas without action are only fantasies. If you can imagine it, you can build it, but only if you are willing to move. In my own journey, I learned this lesson the hard way. I imagined building something meaningful long before I understood how business worked. I did not feel ready. I did not feel confident, but I acted anyway. Action is where imagination gets tested. The moment you take a step, reality pushes back. You make mistakes, you adjust, you learn. This is how imagination becomes structure. Many people wait for motivation. They wait to feel inspired, prepared, or fearless. But builders understand a simple truth. Action comes before confidence. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and discipline begins with movement. Failure is a stepping stone, but only if you keep stepping. Those who do nothing stay exactly where they are, no matter how smart they are. I failed repeatedly because my first actions were clumsy, but each mistake refined my thinking. Each wrong turn clarified my direction. This is something talent alone cannot teach you. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, because doers turn ideas into systems. Talkers turn ideas into excuses. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but preparation looks like action when nobody is watching. Action trains your courage. Action silences doubt. Action transforms imagination into momentum. Once you move, even fear becomes useful. It sharpens your focus instead of paralyzing you. If you are imagining something right now, do not protect it with delay. Protect it with action. Take one step, then another. Ideas are fragile in the mind, but they become strong in motion. If you can imagine it, you can build it, but only if you are brave enough to start. If you decide to build what you imagine, let me prepare you for one thing. Rejection is guaranteed. Not once, not twice, but many times. I know this well because rejection was my most consistent companion in the early years. I was rejected from jobs, rejected by companies, rejected by people who said I was not good enough. At some point, rejection stopped being shocking and started becoming educational. Most people see rejection as a signal to stop. They take it personally. They believe it is proof that their dream is wrong or that they are not capable. This is where builders are separated from the crowd. Builders interpret rejection differently. They see it as feedback, not a verdict. Failure is a stepping stone, but only if you step on it instead of sitting beside it. Every rejection challenged my imagination. It forced me to ask harder questions. What do I need to improve? What am I missing? How can I adjust? Talent expects validation, but builders expect resistance. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and rejection tests how strong that bridge really is. Without persistence, imagination collapses under pressure. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, but rejection turns many talkers silent forever. Builders keep going quietly. They understand that every no sharpens their thinking and strengthens their resolve. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but preparation often looks like enduring rejection without applause. This is why rejection is such powerful training. Over time, something changes inside you. Rejection stops hurting your confidence and starts strengthening it. You realize that your self-worth is not decided by opinions. It is decided by your willingness to continue. Imagination survives rejection only when paired with persistence. If you can imagine it and still move forward after rejection, then you are no longer dreaming. You are building. As I moved forward, I began to notice a very clear pattern in people. It was not about intelligence, education, or background. It was about how they spoke when things became difficult. Some people spent their time explaining why something would not work. Others quietly worked on how it might. This difference seems small, but it decides everything. Complainers are very convincing. They sound smart. They analyze problems deeply. They blame the economy, the system, bad timing, or other people. Listening to them can make you feel intelligent, but it also makes you inactive. Builders are different. They do not waste energy proving why something is impossible. They take responsibility the moment they imagine a better future. Once you imagine more, excuses become uncomfortable. I learned this lesson through painful experience. When things went wrong, it was easy to complain. Easy to say the market was not ready or people did not understand. But every time I complained, my imagination weakened. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and complaining quietly destroys that bridge. Failure is a stepping stone, but complaining turns it into a wall. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. Talkers sound impressive in the short term, but builders create results over time. Builders often look slow, quiet, and even foolish in the beginning, but while others talk, they accumulate experience. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and preparation happens in silence, not in discussion. This is where the separation becomes permanent. Winners see responsibility everywhere. Complainers see excuses everywhere. One group builds systems, skills, and resilience. The other builds stories about why life is unfair. Imagination forces you to choose sides. If you truly imagine something better, you cannot stay a complainer for long. You must act, adapt, and persist. That is how builders are formed. People love to repeat the story of Thomas Edison failing 1,000 times, but most of them repeat it incorrectly. They talk about failure as if it were romantic, as if success simply appeared one day because Edison was special. That is not the lesson. The real lesson is discipline married to imagination. Edison imagined the light bulb long before the world believed it was possible, and that imagination refused to die. Each time his experiment failed, he did not say, "I am not talented enough." He did not say, "The world is against me." He adjusted, refined, and returned to work the next day. Failure is a stepping stone, but only when you step forward, not backward. Without imagination, failure feels like humiliation. With imagination, failure becomes data. Edison understood this, and that is why his failures pushed him closer to success instead of breaking him. Talent alone would have quit early. Talent likes quick wins and easy praise, but building something new requires stubborn effort. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and Edison crossed that bridge every single day. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. And Edison was a doer long before he was celebrated. He showed up when nobody was watching, when nobody was clapping, and when nothing seemed to work. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but Edison prepared obsessively. His imagination gave him direction, and his discipline gave him endurance. This is the proof many people ignore. If imagination alone were enough, everyone would succeed. If talent alone were enough, failure would be rare. But effort is what turns imagination into reality. This is why I say, if you can imagine it, you can build it. Not because it is easy, but because imagination gives you a reason to endure failure. Edison did not succeed because he was lucky. He succeeded because he refused to abandon what he could see in his mind. That is how builders are made, and that is how impossible ideas become history. As your imagination grows stronger, something else becomes very clear. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. This is a difficult lesson because many of these people are not enemies. They are friends, family, colleagues. But good intentions do not always produce good outcomes. Some people are not evil, but they are dangerous to imagination. I learned that when I talked too much about my ideas, my energy disappeared. Everyone had an opinion. Some were worried. Some were sarcastic. Some smiled, but did not believe. Every comment added weight to my mind. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but noise shakes that bridge. Builders learn to protect their focus, not by arguing, but by reducing unnecessary conversations. Negative noise is subtle. It sounds reasonable. What if it fails? Is this the right time? Why not wait? These questions feel intelligent, but they quietly delay action. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, and talk is cheap when it replaces movement. Failure is a stepping stone, but constant discussion can turn that step into hesitation. Hard-earned wisdom teaches you that silence is sometimes strategy. You do not need approval to build. You need clarity. Imagination grows best in focused environments. When you cut the noise, your thinking becomes sharper, your actions become faster, and your confidence becomes internal. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but preparation requires uninterrupted effort. At first, this silence feels lonely. People may think you have changed. In truth, you have matured. Builders are often misunderstood during construction and celebrated only after completion. That is the price. If you can imagine something meaningful, you must guard it carefully. Not everyone needs to understand your path. Cutting negative noise is not arrogance. It is self-respect. It is choosing progress over comfort. When your vision is clear, fewer voices are needed. If you can imagine it, and you can protect that imagination from unnecessary doubt, then you are no longer just dreaming. You are quietly building something real. Many people wait. They wait for confidence, resources, or perfect timing. They think readiness is a prerequisite for action. But this is a trap. Builders understand that readiness is not something you feel, it is something you create. Imagination gives direction, but action creates confidence. If you wait until everything feels perfect, you may never start at all. When I began my journey, I had no money, no connections, and barely enough knowledge to survive. I felt unprepared, scared, and uncertain every single day. Yet I could not stop imagining a better future. I knew that waiting for confidence was a luxury I could not afford. So, I built while confused, I acted while unsure, I learned by doing. This is how imagination turns into reality. Talent without action is wasted potential. Dreams without effort remain dreams. Builders act first, and clarity follows. Each small step produces lessons, experience, and growth. Every decision you make while unsure is a vote for your future self. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and each action strengthens that bridge, even when fear is present. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. Those who wait for perfect readiness often become observers of life instead of creators. Failure is a stepping stone, but hesitation turns that stone into a wall. Builders understand that movement itself is preparation. Momentum creates confidence, and confidence multiplies effectiveness. Action builds readiness, not the other way around. If you can imagine it, you cannot wait for permission from yourself or anyone else. You must start now, even with doubt, even with fear, even with uncertainty. The first steps are never comfortable, but every step taken without perfect readiness brings you closer to building something real. Imagination demands courage, and courage demands action. Start before you feel ready, and the world will adjust to your vision, not the other way around. Building is a daily choice. If you can imagine it, then building it is not a single moment of brilliance. It is a choice you make every day. Every morning presents the same question: will you act, or will you retreat into comfort? Most people choose comfort and call it safety. They look around and tell themselves that waiting, resting, or hesitating is reasonable. Builders, however, know that empires are built in the small, repeated decisions that no one sees. I remember the early days when every step felt uncertain. I had no resources, no network, and many doubted me. Some mornings I wanted to give up. Yet each day I reminded myself that building is a habit, a discipline, and a responsibility. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and every choice to act strengthens that bridge. Success is never accidental. It is earned in the quiet hours, in repeated effort, in persistence when nobody applauds. Building is not glamorous. It is messy. It is filled with rejections, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But those who persist daily understand a secret many never see. Progress compounds faster than failure. Talent may give an advantage, but it is consistency that converts imagination into reality. Every small decision, every late night, every extra hour spent refining your idea adds to the structure of what will one day become undeniable. History is written by those who refuse to abandon what they imagined. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. Builders understand that imagination is useless without execution. Action repeated daily becomes habit. Habit repeated daily becomes achievement. Achievement repeated daily becomes legacy. Every day is a choice to move closer or stay behind. If you can imagine it and you choose to build it every day, nothing can stop you. Your imagination is a seed, and daily action is the water and sunlight. Ignore either, and it will wither. Nurture both, and it will grow into something the world cannot ignore. Building is not easy, but it is simple. Choose action, persist relentlessly, and let your imagination guide your hands. That is how dreams become empires.